darkness. Before reaching the Antarctic ice wall, navigating the increasingly tumultuous southern oceans, explorers encounter the longest, darkest, coldest nights and the most dangerous seas and storms anywhere on Earth. Vasco da Gama, an early 16th century Portuguese explorer of the South Seas, wrote how the waves rise like mountains in height. Ships are heaved up to the clouds and apparently precipitated by circling whirlpools to the bed of the ocean. The winds are piercing cold and so boisterous that the pilot's voice can seldom be heard, whilst a dismal and almost continual darkness adds greatly to the danger. In 1773, Captain Cook became the first modern explorer known to have breached the Antarctic Circle and reached the ice barrier. During 3 voyages lasting 3 years and 8 days, Captain Cook and his crew sailed a total of 60,000 miles along the Antarctic coastline, never once finding an inlet or path through or beyond the massive glacial wall. Captain Cook wrote, "The ice extended east and west far beyond the reach of our sight, while the southern half of the horizon was illuminated by rays of light, which were reflected from the ice to a considerable height. It was indeed my opinion that this ice extends quite to the pole, or perhaps joins some land to which it has been fixed since creation." On October 5, 1839, another explorer, James Clark Ross, began a series of Antarctic voyages lasting a total of 4 years and 5 months. Ross and his crew sailed 2 heavily armored warships thousands of miles, losing many men from hurricanes and icebergs, looking for an entry point beyond the southern glacial wall. Upon first confronting the massive barrier, Captain Ross wrote of the wall, "Extending from its eastern extreme point as far as the eye could discern to the eastward, it presented an extraordinary appearance, gradually increasing in height as we got nearer to it, and proving at length to be a perpendicular cliff of ice, between 150 feet and 200 feet above the level of the sea, perfectly flat and level at the top, and without any fissures or promontories on its even seaward face. We might, with equal chance of success, try to sail through the cliffs of Dover as penetrate such a mass." William Carpenter wrote, "Yes, but we can circumnavigate the south easily enough, is often said by those who don't know. The British ship Challenger recently completed the circuit of the southern region, indirectly to be sure, but she was 3 years about it, and traversed nearly 69,000 miles, a stretch long enough to have taken her 6 times round on the globular hypothesis." Dr. Samuel Rowbotham wrote, "If we now consider the fact that when we travel by land or sea, and from any part of the known world in a direction towards the North Polar Star, we shall arrive at one and the same point, we are forced to the conclusion that what has hitherto been called the North Polar region is really the center of the earth, that from this northern center the land diverges and stretches out, of necessity, towards a circumference, which must now be called the southern region, which is a vast circle, and not a pole or center. In this and other ways, all the great navigators have been frustrated in their efforts, and have been more or less confounded in their attempts to sail round the earth, upon or beyond the Antarctic Circle. But if the southern region is a pole or center, like the north, there would be little difficulty in circumnavigating it, for the distance round would be comparatively small. When it is seen that the earth is not a sphere, but a plane, having only one center, the north, and that the south is the vast icy boundary of the world, the difficulties experienced by circumnavigators can be easily understood. If the earth were truly a globe, then every line of latitude south of the equator would have to measure a gradually smaller and smaller circumference the farther south traveled. In other words, the circumference at 10 degrees south latitude would comprise a smaller circle than at the equator, 20 degrees south latitude would comprise a circle smaller than 10, and so on. If, however, the earth is an extended plane, then every line of latitude south of the equator should measure a gradually larger and larger circumference the farther south traveled. 10 degrees south latitude will comprise a larger circle than the equator, 20 degrees south latitude will comprise a circle larger than 10, and so on. Likewise, if the earth were a globe, lines of longitude would bubble out at the equator while converging at the poles, whereas if earth is an extended plane, lines of longitude should simply expand straight outwards from the North Pole. So which is actually the case? David Wardlaw Scott wrote, "Upon the principle as taught by Scripture and common observation that the world is not a planet but consists of vast masses of land stretched out upon level seas, the north being the center of the system, it is evident that the degrees of longitude will gradually increase in width the whole way from the north center to the icy boundary of the great southern circumference, in consequence of the difference between the actual extent of longitudes and that allowed for them by the nautical authorities, which difference, at the latitude of the Cape of Good Hope, has been estimated to amount to a great number of miles. Many shipmasters have lost their reckoning, and many vessels have been wrecked. Ship captains, who have been educated in the globular theory, know not how to account for their getting so much out of their course in southern latitudes, and generally put it down to currents. But this reason is futile, for although currents may exist, they do not usually run in opposite directions, and vessels are frequently wrecked whether sailing east or west. During Captain James Clark Ross's voyages around the Antarctic circumference, he often wrote in his journal, perplexed at how they routinely found themselves out of accordance with their charts, stating that they found themselves an average of 12 to 16 miles outside their reckoning every day, some days as much as 29 miles. Lieutenant Charles Wilkes commanded a United States Navy exploration expedition to the Antarctic from August 18, 1838 to June 10, 1842. Almost 4 years spent exploring and surveying the Southern Ocean. In his journals, Lieutenant Wilkes also mentioned being consistently east of his reckoning, sometimes over 20 miles in less than 18 hours. Dr. Samuel Robotham wrote, "The commanders of these various expeditions were, of course, with their education and belief in the earth's rotundity, unable to conceive of any other cause for the differences between log and chronometer results than the existence of currents. But one simple fact is entirely fatal to such an explanation, that when the route taken is east or west, the same results are experienced. The water of the southern region cannot be running in two opposite directions at the same time, and hence, although various local and variable currents have been noticed, they cannot be shown to be the cause of the discrepancies so generally observed in high southern latitudes between time and log results. The conclusion is one of necessity, forced upon us by the sum of the evidence collected that the degrees of longitude in any given southern latitude are larger than the degrees in any latitude nearer to the northern center, thus proving the already more than sufficiently demonstrated fact that the earth is a plane, having a northern center, in relation to which degrees of latitude are concentric, and from which degrees of longitude are diverging lines, continually increasing in their distance from each other as they are prolonged towards the great glacial southern circumference." Reverend Thomas Milner wrote, "In the southern hemisphere, navigators to India have often fancied themselves east of the Cape when still west, and have been driven ashore on the African coast, which, according to their reckoning, lay behind them. This misfortune happened to a fine frigate, the Challenger, in 1845. How came Her Majesty's ship Conqueror to be lost? How have so many other noble vessels, perfectly sound, perfectly manned, perfectly navigated, been wrecked in calm weather, not only in dark night or in a fog, but in broad daylight and sunshine, in the former case upon the coasts, in the latter upon sunken rocks, from being out of reckoning, under circumstances which until now have baffled every satisfactory explanation? The equatorial circumference of the supposed ball earth is said to be 24,900 statute, or 21,600 nautical miles. A nautical mile is the distance following the supposed curvature of the earth from 1 minute of latitude to the next. A statute mile is the straight line distance between the two, not taking into account Earth's alleged curvature. The Australian Handbook Almanac Shippers and Importers Directory states that the distance between Sydney and Nelson is 1,400 nautical or 1,633 statute miles, allowing a more than sufficient 83 miles as the distance for rounding Cape Farewell and sailing up Tasman Bay to Nelson leaves 1,550 statute miles as the straight-line distance from the meridian of Sydney to the meridian of Nelson. Their given difference in longitude is 22 degrees 2 minutes 14 seconds. Therefore, if 22 degrees 2 minutes 14 seconds out of 360 is 1,550 miles, the entirety measures 25,182 miles. This is larger than the Earth is said to be at the equator, and 4,262 miles greater than it would be at Sydney's southern latitude on a globe of said proportions. 1/360th part of 25,182 gives 70 miles as the distance between each degree of longitude at Sydney's 34-degree southern latitude. On a globe 25,000 miles in equatorial circumference, however, degrees of longitude at 34 degrees latitude would be only 58 miles, a full 12 miles per degree less than reality. This perfectly explains why Ross and other navigators in the deep south experienced 12-plus mile daily discrepancies between their reckoning and reality. The farther south traveled, the farther the divide. Dr. Samuel Rowbotham wrote, "From near Cape Horn, Chile, to Port Phillip in Melbourne, Australia, the distance is 9,000 miles. These two places are 143 degrees of longitude from each other. Therefore the whole extent of the Earth's circumference is a mere arithmetical question. If 143 degrees make 9,000 miles, what will be the distance made by the whole 360 degrees into which the surface is divided? The answer is 22,657 miles, or 8,357 miles more than the theory of rotundity would permit. It must be borne in mind, however, that the above distances are nautical measure, which, reduced to statute miles, gives the actual distance round the southern region at a given latitude as 26,433 statute miles, or nearly 1,500 miles more than the largest circumference ever assigned to the Earth at the equator. Similar calculations made from the Cape of Good Hope, South Africa, to Melbourne, Australia, at an average latitude of 35.5 degrees south, have given an approximate figure of over 25,000 miles, which is again equal to or greater than the Earth's supposed greatest circumference at the equator. Calculations from Sydney, Australia to Wellington, New Zealand, at an average of 37.5 degrees south, have given an approximate circumference of 25,500 miles, greater still. According to the ball Earth theory, the circumference of the Earth at 37.5 degrees southern latitude should be only 19,757 statute miles, almost 6,000 miles less than such practical measurements. Dr. Samuel Rowbotham wrote, "The above calculations are, as already stated, only approximate, but as liberal allowances have been made for irregularities of route, etc., they are sufficiently accurate to prove that the degrees of longitude, as we proceed southwards, do not diminish as they would upon a globe, but expand or increase as they must if the Earth is a plane, or, in other words, the farthest point, or greatest latitude south, must have the greatest circumference and degrees of longitude." And William Carpenter wrote, "Parallels of latitude only, of all imaginary lines on the surface of the earth, are circles, which increase progressively from the northern center to the southern circumference. The mariner's course in the direction of any one of these concentric circles is his longitude, the degrees of which increase to such an extent beyond the equator, going southwards, that hundreds of vessels have been wrecked because of the false idea created by the untruthfulness of the charts and the globular theory together, causing the sailor to be continually getting out of his reckoning. With a map of the earth in its true form, all difficulty is done away with, and ships may be conducted anywhere with perfect safety. This, then, is a very important practical proof that the earth is not a globe."
I phoned up Antarctica. There's like a tourist umbrella you have to go through, and I sort of said, "Oh, I've got loads of money. I've got boats in Hawaii and India," which I don't. And me and some friends were going to hack down to Antarctica and walk across it. And I got loads of emails off these people saying, "No, you don't. No, you don't. Fill out your permits. You've got Orange membership. And fill out this. Why are you coming?" I got like totally hammered just for saying I'm coming to Antarctica. What I found is you're only allowed in through New Zealand, South America at the bottom, and South Africa at the bottom. And they take you in, you see some penguins, you sleep somewhere cold, and they throw you back out, all for like $5,000. Now, it's totally locked down, and I did an article about it where I looked at the Treaty of Antarctica, which is some countries got together and locked it down. They've got a lot of science research going on there, and they just don't let anyone in. Now, where this treaty meet, they have a big table that's shaped in a pyramid with the top cut off. Which is, you can call me a conspiracy theorist, but there's obviously something there. What would you like to add on the Antarctica rim model, Eric?
Yeah, so Antarctica is not just the tiny ice continent on the bottom of the globe that it shows, but it is the case that no matter where you are on Earth, if you go southwards from there, you'll hit Antarctica. So if you imagine expanding that little Antarctic continent on the bottom of the globe out to an ice rim all the way across, around the Earth, the North Pole being in the center, anywhere you go in a straight line, you will end up going to the ice wall.
Yeah, and many boats through, since the 40s, 50s have talked about my instruments went crazy, there were ice walls for hundreds of miles, I got lost. There's so many of these stories.
Yeah, and so they say that there's a South Pole somewhere too on part of that guided tour that you're talking about. They've got an arbitrary point along the Antarctic ice that they've put a red and white barbershop pole with a ball earth on top of it and claim that that's the South Pole. But they even admit that it's not the real South Pole because the real geomagnetic South Pole is constantly moving. So since it's constantly moving, you're never really going to be able to see it. But the reality is they can't have people going down there with a compass and checking to see if it really is the South Pole.
Last year, Prince Harry was down there, and he basically just made some filming. He was with Rupert and Tarquin and a few of his friends. And the story was, it was on all the mainstream news, Prince Harry in Antarctica. Oh, we had to go back, it was just too cold, my foot got blisters and frostbite. What the message to the subconscious is, it doesn't matter how rich you are, don't go there, it's too cold.
Now that Prince Harry and a team of injured servicemen and women have been walking to the South Pole, well, they've got there, they've completed the 200-mile Walking with the Wounded South Pole Challenge, that's its proper name. They've spent more than 3 weeks trekking through Antarctica, and this was what it sounded like at the moment when they arrived at the bottom of the world.
Let's go!
It sounds quite restrained, doesn't it, after all that effort? Well, they spent 20 hours in a cold chamber. This was the prince and the other competitors who were with him to prepare for the conditions that they were going to find down there. The expedition was supposed to be a race. You might remember it being billed that way before it started, but the weather became so bad as they went along that they scrapped the competitive side of things and just joined up as one big team instead. And this was how Harry reacted after completing the mission.
We're here, we made it. It's Friday the 13th. We've had so many things go against us. We've had beautiful weather, but bad weather before, and bad terrain and injuries and stuff like that. But everyone's made it, all 12 of them, the whole group of 20, whatever it is. But the 12 wounded soldiers have made it. Couldn't have made it without everyone's help, especially back home. The founders, Ed and Simon as well. But everyone is so happy. Everyone's touched the ball. We've all had photos. We've all had hugs, a few tears here and there. But all in all, mission success, basically.
If you're wondering about that ball that he was talking about, it's the ceremonial South Pole at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. It's like a metal sphere on a red and white pole, and it's partly surrounded by the flags of the signatories of the Antarctic Treaty. So it's lovely for a photo, but the problem with it is it's not the real South Pole. It's about 300 metres away.
So at the real South Pole, what is that?
Well, there's nothing. That's the thing. You can't see. To do it properly, to cover all your bases, you have to do both. You have to do the picture with the ball, and then you have to go and kind of hang around at the exact
why don't they move
longitude
the ball to
and
where
latitude.
the actual thing is?
Well, that's a very sensible question. It's not one I can answer,
Okay.
but it's a very good.
Earth is a level, motionless plane with the sun, moon, and stars revolving over and around us just as you experience every day. The North Pole is the magnetic monopole center point, with Polaris, the North Pole star, situated directly above. Polaris is the only motionless star in the heavens, with all the other constellations revolving perfect circles over the earth every night. The so-called planets, known to the ancients as wandering stars, were named such because they were observed then, as we can observe today, to wander the heavens, taking their own unique spirograph-like patterns, making both forward and retrograde motions over and around the earth during their cycles. Meanwhile, the fixed stars were named such because they were observed then, as we can observe today, to stay fixed in their constellation patterns night after night, year after year, century after century, never changing their relative positions. If Earth was truly a tilting, wobbling, spinning space ball, as NASA and modern astronomy proclaim, rotating 1,000 miles per hour on its axis, revolving 67,000 miles per hour around the Sun, spiraling 500,000 miles per hour around the galaxy, and shooting off several million more miles per hour through the universe, the star patterns would never look the same 2 nights in a row, let alone be fixed in exactly the same constellations for thousands upon thousands of years. The reality is that the Earth and Polaris do not move, while everything else in the heavens revolves over Earth and around Polaris, east to west, like in a planetarium dome. Our Earth planetarium, however, is so vast that perspective won't allow any observer to see all the stars simultaneously from any one vantage point. We can see Polaris, Ursa Major and Minor, and other northern constellations from every point north of the equator simultaneously, but conversely cannot see the so-called South Pole star, Sigma Octantis, the Southern Cross, or other outer constellations simultaneously from every point south of the equator, because they all sweep over a great southern arc from their rise in the evening to their setting in the morning. Facing north, the stars turn counterclockwise from right to left. Facing south, they turn clockwise from left to right. Facing east, they rise in front and set behind, while facing west, they rise behind and set in front. So their apparent motion, angle, and inclination changes depending where you are on Earth and what direction you are facing. But their actual movement is always east to west.
So human beings who live on the globe spinning in space with curved water and with these type of satellites, I seriously do not understand you. Why are you so hypocrite? You're such hypocrites and you're anti-scientific and you're anti-reality. I don't understand you. So let's see science and reality and stuff, and let's make you feel disgusted with yourself. This is a message for people who live on the globe spinning in space with curved water. Why do you accept these satellites? I mean, everybody knows this is video games, 3D, three-dimensional computer graphics made on a computer, cartoons, invented stuff. Everybody knows this is fake. So why do you keep on accepting that this is reality? I'm going to show you the reality right now, which is going to make short circuit. This is what you say is reality, according to you. 3D CGI animations on computer software. And I'm going to show you reality in the real world, in places like South America and Brazil. And not only, this is just an example. We have satellites that crashed in the back garden of normal people, normal peasants. And all these satellites, what they have in common is they float with helium balloons on the surface of the Earth. Helium balloons because they float, because the density of helium is less than the density of air. Therefore, it floats. There's no gravity. There's no globe Earth. There's nothing. So I understand you're frustrated with your lives and that you only care about insulting and stuff. These are the satellites. I'm going to show you more pictures. Stay tuned. Keep on staying with me, because you're gonna hate me for this, because I'm going to show you reality and the truth. But hey, I don't care. I mean, I am a real human being, not like you. So this is like a crash satellite in Brazil. It's just satellites exist. The thing is, they do not exist the way that you believe it exists. They do not exist floating around the globe, spinning in space, and gravity keeps them. No, everything is helium globes like this. And because helium floats, because the density of helium is less than density of air, there is no gravity. Everything is density and buoyancy. That is pure science. You are anti-scientific, my friend, and that's the truth. So this is NASA. This is official NASA footage. This is not something like a stupid flat earther in the basement of his mother, like you say, is doing. This is original footage from NASA, pure science. This is what NASA does when they're sending, since the 1950s, after the Second World War, they're sending the satellites in space, above the Earth, what we call space, with floating helium balloons. There is no such thing as what you see in cartoons and movies. This is what happens in real life. So do you tell me, is real life and reality inferior in your brain compared to what you want to believe? This is like footage from the 1950s. Back in the day, in the 1950s, because the world was so primitive, the only way to launch helium balloons up in the air was from aircraft, like aircraft carriers, because they were so huge and big and gigantic. They had to be in the middle of the ocean. And I believe they had to be in the middle of the ocean as well, because it was away from the public eye, so nobody would have actually had the camera or like the capacity to actually follow the army or the navy onto the ocean and see that for themselves. But that's what they were doing back in the 1950s and 60s. And today, this is what they're doing. NASA has programs. NASA is actually the largest helium consumer in the world. You can check it up. It's not made up. NASA consumes helium like no other company in the world. Why would NASA need so much helium if the world works with gravity and globe spinning in space with curved water? Because there is no gravity. Everything is helium, and they need this to launch the satellites. And they have people like scientists and retired NASA Goddard Space Flight Center speaking about the importance of buoyancy and density and how the satellites float, thanks to the fact that the Earth is not a globe. It's flat and it's motionless. It doesn't move. And I don't even know what to say anymore. So you have the footage. You have this, for example, this person who's chief technologist for the balloon program. She was saying, and this is like public knowledge, that when they fabricate these balloons to actually launch the satellites, each one of these balloons, when it's inflated and when it's ready to launch, it has the size of a football stadium. This is American football, but who cares? American football, European football, a domed football stadium. So that's the size of those things that are up there in space somewhere above the surface of the flat motionless Earth. And also many of these, look at this, this is official, this is how satellites are being launched, and they're launched from Antarctica. Lots of the satellites are launched from Antarctica, from the places where common mortal human beings like you and me, because we are useless birth certificates, we do not have access to go there. And that's why they're launching them from so far away in Antarctica, because there's nobody there to actually film it, so there will be no witnesses, so therefore they can get away with it. But this is actually the truth. This exists. This is reality. Why the heck do you keep on saying that your reality is this? Why do you accept this reality? Because this is just like invented cartoon and computer graphics. This is reality. They're launching satellites with helium globes, helium balloons from Antarctica, where nobody has access, like you and me, only the military and themselves, because that's the way the world works. And this is public knowledge. This is not something invented or conspiracy. So the only reason why you keep on insulting people who search for the truth and people who accept the truth is because you're frustrated and you're a hypocrite and you hate your life. And that's it. So you accept this because, I don't know, because you know that nothing is going to change in the world. Therefore, you have a reason to be happy, to insult and to laugh at people who just accept the truth for what it is. It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. I actually feel disgusted and ashamed to share the same DNA with people who live on a globe with curved water spinning in space. I feel super disgusted. And you're going to say now, why do you keep on focusing your video, like this type of video, with people who live on the globe Earth? Well, very simple, because you people who know the truth, you're fine. You don't need help. People who need help and to go to a psychologist are those who live on a globe spinning in space with curved water. So that's why I'm trying to help people here. I'm actually a good human being, you know. This is what a person with his Nikon P900 camera, those cameras that make super zooms, the P900 and the P1000, and cameras that you just insult because you tell people buy yourself a telescope or something. Well, this is something you can use your camera for, and this is a satellite with a helium balloon or globe floating around in front of the moon. And that's it. That's what you see with 83 times zoom. That's the P900, and the P1000 has 120. And by the way, everywhere you look right now, they're out of stock. Probably there's a reason why these cameras are out of stock, in my opinion. Anyway, so yeah, it's very simple. And this was seen in The Simpsons. It's not like The Simpsons tells you the future. It's more like in The Simpsons, they're actually telling you the truth, because that's the way that politics and the world works. They're showing it to you in cartoons, in The Simpsons and stuff. They're showing you reality, and this is reality. From Antarctica, from the North Pole, which is not actually the North Pole, it's just a central part of this crater, because we do not have access there. It's forbidden. So that's how they launch the satellites. Buoyancy, density, there is no gravity. The only reason why you keep on insulting people that speak the truth, it's because I would say something right now, but I'm not going to say it because probably YouTube is not going to like it. So anyway, that's it, the whole thing. I didn't do anything bad. I'm just showing you reality versus invented cartoons and 3D CGI and video games. I love video games, I love cartoons, I love 3D CGI, but when it comes to the truth, when it comes to actually understand how the world works and what's reality, this is reality. This is not reality. And what else? What else here? And what's the other satellite here? And this is not reality. This is fake. This is just animation. Reality is this. On the moon, reality is what you see in Antarctica when they launch satellites with helium balloons, because helium floats and the Earth does not move. There is no spinning, there is no curvature, there is no gravity. NASA knows this. Of course, they have their own program for the public, because that's the whole part of the whole system and the whole process, right? But the videos exist, the documentaries exist, science exists. If you go in front of a judge right now, and you want to prove these things, the judge is going to give you, the person who actually speaks the truth, the right to actually go out clean, because a judge has to respect the truth if you have the materials. And these are the materials, and this is science, and this is irrefutable science. And this is something that I know, it's just I am ashamed of the human race, of 99% of the human race, because it's so simple. It's just a matter of like sitting your ass or your butt on a chair for like an hour to actually understand this with your human intellect, and then you're just going to realize, okay, I was lied all my life, I feel frustrated and I feel like a piece of crap, but who cares? At least I know the truth, right? That's the big thing that people don't want to do. They don't want to sit on their asses and just understand with their human intellect. Oh, it's easier to just insult flat earthers because, you know, that's the norm. That's simple. What can you do, right? So I'm hoping that at least one of the people who actually lives on his fantasy globe bird spinning in space, they're gonna actually watch my video and they're just gonna actually sit down for a second or for a minute or for a day and just think. Use your human intellect. Don't be like a monkey, because monkeys don't think. They just eat bananas and they have sex in the jungle. Just think for a bit, and probably you're gonna realize the truth. And I don't care if it's frustrating for you or if you're gonna go crazy or something. That's your problem. Hey, the truth is the truth, and if you cannot handle it, then that's your problem, my friend. So, and that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one.
in a world. Sharing a mic. Hope you guys can hear us. Give us some feedback. You should be able to turn it up. Can't see the little homie, but he's in the lab.
Was that Austin talking?
Yeah.
Baby Leo.
What up, everybody? Hopefully you guys can hear us. Looks like everything's working out. All right, what's up? We had a pretty busy few days, and we're gonna get back to it. Figured out we started off, we'd hang out with you guys, and then we'll get back to the gravy going forward. Yeah, so we're gonna do a little recap of Flattoberfest and take some questions, talk about our songs, and just kind of chill. So yeah, what's up, fam? We had Flattoberfest over the weekend, and
That was fun.
yeah, what'd you think about it? It's your second one.
Second one. I thought it was really fun. I think, I don't know, there were some things I liked a little bit better about the previous venue, but I still felt like this one was a vibe. Just like a really chill, peaceful vibe. Well, I guess there was like, we were a little stressed because we had to perform, but other than that,
Alright, yo, Flagdale.
What up, G?
And put the
What up?
city on.
How you doing? Just lost the fucking pen tool for my lady's iPad Pro, dude. I'm so pissed, dude.
Sorry, bear with me. I'll get your track queued up and then I'll put that Witsit piece back on.
Put the what piece back on?
I'm gonna play your track and then I'll put the
Oh, cool,
Witsit
cool.
piece on and then
Cool.
I gotta dip out.
Yeah.
But it's damn early for you, man. Why are you up so early? The hell?
Me? I haven't gone to bed yet.
Yeah, home.
I'm getting ready to go to bed in the next half hour.
Alright, let me throw this up for you, man. Have a good day and a good sleep. Enjoy your track, brother.
Thanks, bro. You too.
Yeah.
Yo, I just metamorphosed into the head of a porpoise. This ain't doctor's advice, can't break down no medical fortress. Most of you medics made an unethical fortune. When they put dye in your blood, that metal was scorching. Where you from, cuz? Yo, I'm headed to Morgan Freeman's just to see how much more I can see him. He's on every billboard, platform, Discord, and DM. I heard they hired C-3PO to work for 3M. It's 3 a.m. and I just thirst for your BMW. Never knew two words could infer the same meaning, but it's my way or the highway on a stairway to heaven. You've had way too much to drink, I'm too impaired to be driven. Yo, I meant to say driving, I put a dent in the hymen. I went over the center of the fighter when I entered the island. Caused an earthquake epicenter in the center of Thailand. It's my birthday to be the winner of inventor of rhymes, man. Parent now as a kid while my parents were fighting. Now I got laryngitis and all these Karens don't like me. My life is like a Ferris wheel, but I'm scared of the heights, G. I'm beside myself, despite myself, staring behind me. Then a whole caravan of them Karens define me. Dropped her off, honking the horn, blaring beside me. Now she's all in love, wants to get married tonight. We about to tie the knot, you know. We do the shit right. She's just a milk aching for someone to beat the brakes off her. I just offered her milkshake, but I'll eat the steak off her. She just ate from the tree of Scientia, cause the snake offered. When I found out water doesn't bend, I'd say my faith. I'm getting exasperated, waiting on this NASA balloon. Took an 8 of shrooms, masturbated while debating on Zoom. It feels so amazing when he's blazing this herb up. Sitting in this suburban, nothing can disturb him. You should have averted your eyes, cause his life is so perfect, so superfluous if he were to get murdered. The way to a man's heart if you Cause you oughta try feeding him fruit, not food that's been herded. You heard what I said? What is ya? Freaking retarded. The Son of Man has no place to lay his hard head. Foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to rest. It's so amazing when he's blazing his herb up, sitting in the suburban, nothing can disturb him. You should have averted your eyes, cause his life is so perfect, so superfluous if he were to get murdered. The way to a man's heart, if you hurt is to birth, cause you oughta try feeding him fruit, not food that's been herded. You heard what I said, what is you freaking retarded? The Son of Man has no place to lay his hard head. Foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to rest. Long as the sun and moon keeps pace in his head, and I'm adjacent to Amy when debating the Fed. You're just the opposite of what terminal velocity is. What an atrocity where all this animosity lives. Get up off me for all you who've been mocking my shit. Off the top, I know how nonsense these topics can get. This ain't medical advice, I spit to a melody nice like Melanie before she got in them felony fights. Bringing Eskimos frozen water like I'm selling them mice. I heard Starbucks was closing to give me hell if I'm right. Shouts out to Paraplegic, hope I'm yelling it like I was very bulimic, now look how well I can write. All this cheddar to burn, never knew how well mozzarella could light. Anybody heard from CERN, they put up one hell of a fight. The James Webb telescope, they try to sell you the sky. Sheep will think the hell are dope, but what they tell you's a lie. Terminal velocity, what an atrocity that I witnessed. Can I get a witness as I witness these nitwits go into rocket launches like it's a legitimate business? I hate to be the one that knocks NASA off its hinges. Vin, oranges and syringes. Pour your heart into something that's so pretentious, so close, only miss the goalpost by inches. Another record that you never broke from Guinness. I'm like a broke dental hygienist that got chlamydia. Mentally dented, I'm so bent, and I am not kidding you. So phenomenal, from all this nominal gain till this Andromeda stream brought this abdominal pain. First time I saw Michelle Obama, I wanted to scream. Riding on a llama with hot pockets, popping them things, popping them things, popping them things, popping them, popping them things.
Popping them, popping them things.